Growing up in Idaho, anyone who has experienced that knows that it could be an interesting time. So, just as an introduction, all of these stories will be about Idaho and my experiences there. And as I move through some of these stories, I'll try to draw in some people who I experienced these stories with, and may do a podcast and we'll reminisce about some of those things. And it's always good to get perspective on all stories. I was born in Boise and we lived there until I was 5. And I had a lot of experiences, and I remember everything that happened to me there. And some of them are pretty fun. And the reason that it was such an interesting time is because our family was young. My mom and dad were young people. They got married in their teens. And so when I came along as the second child, they were still young people trying to figure out how to do things, how to be parents and other adulting things. Dad was a police officer. He was a deputy sheriff for Ada County. He wore a regular police uniform that the sheriff's deputies wore in those days, which included a gun, obviously, a .357 Magnum revolver and all the bullets. And he had a nightstick, a sap, and of course his handcuffs. And in those days they used tear gas as opposed to pepper spray, which is the popular item now. So anyway, while he was not working at the police department, the sheriff's office, he was a student at Boise State College in those days, working on a social studies history program, as I understand. So that was how it was for me. And mom was a stay-at-home mom, thankfully. Somebody had to watch the kids. And here's how it worked back in the early 60s for a kid. We would get up in the morning, my brother and I, put on our clothes and eat breakfast and go out to play. Even if it was a crappy day, raining or sometimes snowing, we would be outside, because outside we were away from mom and all of her rules. And also we didn't have to do chores if we were outside. So we'd slip out as soon as we watched Captain Kangaroo and Jack LaLanne and go out and play. And I had some friends that lived nearby, Robbie and Dougie. My brother and I were out playing, and somebody from outside of our neighborhood drove in. And you have to understand, our street, Ralph Roy Street in Boise, made a circle, and our side was Ralph Roy Street, and then it turned into another street on the other side of the little circle that we lived in. And so you'd come in off of some main drag that was by a big canal. I think it was called the New York Canal, right into our neighborhood. So we got this guy that drove in, and he had a flat tire. So my brother and I walked over to see what he was up to. And he asked us if we had a jack, or if we could go find a jack, if my dad or somebody had a jack, because he didn't have one and he needed to change his tire. And we said, yeah, we know where our dad's jack is. We'll go get it. So we ran over to the garage and messed around in there and found dad's jack. Went over and gave it to this guy, and he changed his tire. And then he said, hey, boys, this is a fast car. And do you want to go for a ride? And we're like, yeah, sounds like a good trade-off. We loaned you our jack. You give us a ride in your fast car. So this little 4-year-old kid and his older brother, 6 years old, the Hicks boys, jumped in this guy's car. We didn't know who he was. We drove out on that highway, and he told us we were going 105 miles per hour down this highway. And he would count off the miles per hour as we increased. And the telephone poles were going by really fast. So I knew it was fast. I'd never gone that fast. It was dizzying speed. And then he slowed down, turned around, made a U-turn, and then took us back home. And it was exciting. It was really exciting. And we dropped us off in front of our house, and we played around there a little bit and then went in the house. And you have to understand, Dad worked night shifts for the sheriff's department. So if he was home, not at school during the day, he was usually in bed. So we went in there and tiptoed around, trying to be quiet. Mom came out and asked us what we'd been up to. Of course, we had to tell her about our exciting news that we got to go ride in this guy's fast car. And Dad heard this. He must have been a little bit awake. He came charging out of the room. "What? You boys got in somebody's car?" He was still groggy and half asleep. We're like, "Yeah, Dad, this guy gave us a ride in his car because we loaned him your jack so he could change his tire." Dad just went crazy. He said, "Boys, never, ever get in somebody's car again that you don't know. And even if you do know them, you have to ask mine or Mom's permission before you go riding off with somebody. We don't know where you're at. It's maybe somebody would kidnap you." "What's kidnapping, Dad? What does that mean?" So we got a little lesson in the dangers of jumping in people's cars and heading off with them. And we never did tell Dad and Mom how fast the guy claimed to be going, because we probably would have been grounded forever. But anyway, that was life in Boise. I'll have some more stories next week.
Thanks for listening. Growing up in Idaho, the good old days.